I didn't know how long we sat there before he stood up. The room that included only us was devastatingly quiet.
Let's go.
Okay. His voice was curt and clipped, but when he turned to look at me, his eyes went suddenly wide.
Hey, no crying.
I nodded and tried to stop, but it was no good. The tears wouldn't stop no matter how much I'd wiped. I hear you, girl. In one day, in 1 hour, I'd been forced to say goodbye to Heisuke, to Sanon, and the father I hadn't seen for over a year. I know, man, that last one was just... It tore my heart out and stomped all over it. I'm like, I need to stop now because I'm sobbing everywhere. Ugh. That was brutal. And then this music plays. I don't know how you move on from that. The events of Sendai Castle resonated with me for a while, and after some time had passed, I found myself alone again, standing in front of Sendai Castle and eyeing its majestic shape. In the corner of my eye, I saw the autumn sky in the background, letting a soft breeze hit my cheeks. Yes?
Geez, they sure took their sweet-ass time.
Hijikata emerged from the castle gates, and his worn expression indicated a worrisome tiredness. Hello, Hijikata. How was the meeting?
How? Those numbskulls up in the Sendai Domain's leadership won't hear anything, even with Enomoto and I poking around as often as we were. Apparently, the Imperial Army has aroused too much of a vigorous spirit, so we cannot act yet. That's the bullshit they gave me. Can you believe that? They act all high and mighty on their thrones in the northeast, but when push comes to shove, they pussy out. It's pathetic.
What? Both the Shinsengumi and the Aizu domain were giving everything they could to continue the fight. If we couldn't rely on our allies in the northeast, then it seemed the outcome of the war would be grimmer than we would have hoped.
Let's head back to the inn. The sun's really beating down today.
Okay. A cloud of frustration seemed to follow us as we returned to our inn, most notably in Hijikata. Understandably. Hang in there, Hijikata. We'll be at the inn soon enough. Hijikata's skin looked pale, and watching him in silent agony made my heart ache.
Ugh, stop worrying about me. How about you? You holding up all right?
I'm... fine. I mean, I'm pretty resilient.
How can you say that? You stay up all night, awake, just to tend to me.
Well, I'm a tough one. When you finally fall asleep, it gives me the peace of mind that I can rest easily, too. Hijikata's lips curled, and he didn't seem satisfied with my answer. Instead, he just stared at me. He turned his head gradually towards the hues of red and orange covering the autumn sky in the distance. I followed his lead, and I looked towards the sky. Huh? My vision suddenly blurred.
Hey, what's the matter?
You passing out, girl? Hijikata was right next to me, and yet his voice sounded so distant. Before I knew it, my body collapsed to the floor. Well, dang! Really?
Yukimura! Hey! You alright? Hang in there!
When I regained my consciousness, I discovered myself tucked snugly into a futon. Aw, you tucked me snug. Oh, is this...
About time you woke up. Do you know where you are right now?
Ah! Hijikata! Once I realized it was him, I snapped out of my daze. I'm sorry, I desperately wanted to apologize, but Hijikata was going to have none of it.
You idiot!
Gah!
If you weren't feeling well, you shouldn't have gone outside. You should have rested.
I'm so sorry. It felt like a stone dropped in the pit of my stomach as Hijikata scolded me, and I could only look down. Hijikata seemed flustered by his outburst, and he scratched his head before muttering under his breath.
Well, I guess I shouldn't be too hard on you. You've barely had any chance to rest, especially after what happened with your father's passing. I can't really be surprised that you would push yourself to act like everything's normal.
Well, I couldn't deny that I was upset about what happened with Father, but I wasn't the only one who lost someone. Hijikata did too. Not only did he lose Kondo, but both Sanan and Heisuke as well. Losing so many of his close friends and comrades surely was taking a devastating toll on Hijikata, one I'm sure no one would be comfortable admitting.
Until further notice, you don't have to join me when I meet with members of the Sendai domain. You're going to stay here to rest.
What? No, I'm fine. Today was just a lot to handle, so please.
If you faint again, you're causing me trouble, not just yourself.
I'm sorry. Hijikata's biting words overloaded me with guilt. I'll be careful. I won't let this become a problem again in the future. So please, please let me continue being with you.
Why? Because Kondo, Yamazaki, and Gen asked you to watch after me or something? None of the men who died for us would have wanted you to look after me at the expense of your own health.
Well, true, Hijikata had a point. But if you were to know the truth about why I would want to stay with him, I'd say... I don't say you're worried about him. Just say you want to be by his side. Yeah. I want to be by your side, Hijikata.
Yeah? Why's that?
What do you mean, why? I couldn't continue. I knew in my heart of hearts what the true answer was, but there's no way I could tell Hijikata my feelings. Suddenly, the hairs behind my neck stood, tingling me.
You baka. Well, fine. Whatever. If you don't want to tell me, I don't care.
Oh, I'm sure. Hijikata flashed his usual sense of detachment, and he muttered quietly to himself. Mutter. Hijikata likewise seemed caught up in his own thoughts, and he muttered something shortly afterwards.
Hey, you were close with Dr. Matsumoto, right?
Well, I wasn't close with him. My father was, though. However, Dr. Matsumoto did watch after me frequently.
I see. He's a good man. I just can't seem to put my full trust in him.
Right. Why would he be bringing this up all of a sudden? I couldn't quite grasp the point Hijikata was trying to make.
If anything happens while we're out here, I want you to find him and stay with him. Even if the Aizu and the Sendai were to surrender to the Imperial Army, as long as you're with him, I'm sure they won't touch you.
What? But it's not a sure thing that they'll lose.
Look, kid. When you're at war, you can't just prepare for victory. Gotta consider your defeat as well.
With that said, Hijikata turned to face the outside window, and he continued.
I'm sure Dr. Matsumoto will show up any moment now at Sendai, so when that happens...
He fell silent. After a while, he shook his head tenderly.
Nothing. Forget it. I'm just rambling.
Huh? In the empty space of our conversation, I tried to sift through what Hijikata was trying to say. However, I couldn't understand any of it. All I could do was pray that this brief, peaceful reprieve would prolong itself, even for a bit. This was all we could do, really, in these dark times. You both should just tell each other that you love each other. Get it over with. Hijikata and Enomoto made another trip to speak with the Sendai officials the following day. Although they hoped their audience with the officials would be fruitful. Well.
Yeah, it's no use. The officials of Sendai seem to have completely lost the will to fight.
What are you thinking? That we should just turn in our swords and surrender to those asshats with them?
Even if you're joking, that's not funny. I don't care if we're entering a new era. It should never be appropriate for the winners to enjoy their spoils of war without consideration for our terms. Especially if they aim for Japan to become westernized and dismiss all its civility, like other countries, and bow to foreign intervention.
Sure, but it's only a matter of time before any of the domains in the northeast fall too.
Well, it's not like there's a shortage of ideas on my side where to take it from here, but I suppose we will have to refrain from making any rash decisions until we reunite with Otori.
Oh yeah, how is Otori? It's been a while. A few days passed. I hear our forces are gathering in an area to the north of Sendai. Are you planning on heading to Ezo? An island located off the coast of the Mutsu Peninsula. The Matsume domain controls a portion of it. It is now known as Hokkaido. Ezo was a large island north of Sendai, which was at least a day's boat ride across the sea. From some stories I had heard, I envisioned it as a place where blankets of snow covered the roofs of houses for more than half of the year.
The Shinsengumi serves two things: the shogun and the shogunate. That hasn't changed.
The Shinsengumi shows others the way, right? I smiled brightly toward him, and Hijikata turned to face the sky with a hint of melancholy in his eyes.
It's funny, huh? All this time, everyone judged us for not being true warriors, whatever that means. Now look at us.
I'm sure Kondo would be proud, watching over us wherever he is now.
I bet.
I could almost recall Kondo's joyful grin. In this moment, I think Hijikata saw something similar wherever he was looking. Well, that's one more reason not to die, then. It was a burden on him, undoubtedly, but Hijikata had seen many of his friends lay down their lives for the Shinsengumi and what it represented. Knowing what it had meant to them, he couldn't allow himself to die.
As long as men believe in what we stand for, I can't let the Shinsengumi die.
That's right. The doubt that I had seen in him weeks before was gone. He accepted his place at the head of the Shinsengumi. Seeing him so at peace made me feel the same.
I have to protect the Shinsengumi.
Yes, you do.
He looked over at me, his gaze warm.
I felt pretty good. Better than I had felt in a long time. Just being next to him was enough to make me feel like everything was right with the world. I'm shocked that things didn't go terribly wrong right after that scene. I'm like, and crash, Fury comes in, swords blazing. That was nice. We actually just had a nice moment. I liked that. We needed that. A few more days of autumn came and went. The men we'd left in Aizu finally reached Sendai. Unfortunately, bad news came with them. I knew I wasn't going to see him again. Oh, that goodbye was just too... There was such a note of finality to it. I'm like, I'm never going to see you again, am I, Saito?
Saito has fallen in battle. His last words were, "Leave the rest to Hijikata."
Shimada's jaw was tight with emotion as he spoke. Ever since the war started, I don't know how many times I've seen this expression on a warrior's face. I bit my lip until it almost bled. It was a desperate attempt to keep tears from my eyes. It didn't seem fair to cry in front of him. Hijikata put his hand on Shimada's shoulders, and he gave some words of encouragement.
Sorry I put you through that, Shimada. I'm just glad you made it back alive.
Shimada's eyes grew wide, and he looked overcome with emotion.
Thank you, sir.
Heisuke and Sanan lost their lives back in Sendai, and Saito lost his in Aizu. This meant Hijikata was the only Fury left among the Shinsengumi.
It's been hard already, but I'm pretty sure things are gonna get worse. You've all fought enough. So...
Shimada set his jaw and looked back at Hijikata.
I have already given my life to the Shinsengumi. It just hasn't been lost yet. We'll follow you to the end of the world, sir. Me too! I'll follow you to the bitter end, sir.
I threw my life away before I met any of you. Let me accompany you no matter where it takes us.
You guys...
We want to fight as the Shinsengumi. We want to fight for the justice we believe in.
If Kondo was alive, I'm sure he would have cried. The Shinsengumi was united in body and mind. I felt a great happiness welling up in me, and suddenly I couldn't hold it in any longer. Tears spilled forth.
Idiots.
He twisted his face into a sneer, but there was no hiding the warmth in his eyes as he looked out over the men. Every one of them respected him. They knew the coming battle would not be an easy one, but there was no doubt in their minds. Their place was with Hijikata and the Shinsengumi. The Shinsengumi was a potent symbol of what it meant to be a true samurai, whose devotion and passion were championed above all else. October came. The Sendai domain was moving closer and closer to submitting to the Imperial Army. Our presence here was growing more dangerous. Even Otori agreed that we should leave. Ultimately, it was decided that the Shinsengumi would head to Ezo with Enomoto's fleet. We left Sendai and headed into the forest. We'd almost arrived at the rendezvous when Hijikata suddenly stopped and turned to me.
Chizuru, I can't take you this time. You stay here.
What? His words stopped me in my tracks. It was so sudden. But why? Where is this coming from?
There'll be a lot of fighting. You should get away from that. No reason for you to stick with us anymore, right?
No, there is!
I know Kondo, Gen, and Yamazaki asked you to take care of me, but I'm sure you fulfilled your promise in full. If you were to die in the mess of this war, then I will be the one that gets scolded by them in the afterlife. I think it's time you are released from us.
No! Now that my father had passed, I knew there wasn't something to justify staying with the Shinsengumi, but even so, my heart yearned to be with Hijikata.
Kazuma will probably be coming after me soon, but I can take him. You don't need to worry about that.
No, that's not it! Once again, I found myself nearly yelling. I don't want to stay just because I think I need you to protect me from Kazuma! He looked as if he were dealing with a fussy toddler.
Come on, don't be like that. I can't make you happy.
What? My eyes went wide. When I spoke, my voice shook. Being with Hijikata makes me happy. I don't know. I don't know what to do with this one. It's a toughie. Because he's like, I feel like he'd be like, you're an idiot to say that being with me makes you happy when you've had nothing but trouble since you've been with me. And he's also like very, like, he's dedicated to the cause of the Shinsengumi. Like, there's not really room for other things right now. So I feel like if we were like, look, it's not just about being happy. There's something bigger going on. Maybe? I don't know. Like, this seems like, oh, obviously. But I feel my heart's drawn to this one. I just saved, so we can reload. But my heart says this. What makes me happy is... I don't need to be happy. I'm not asking for happiness. All I want to do is to fight alongside the Shinsengumi. I want to follow the same path you do. I didn't care what my position might be, so long as I could stay at Hijikata's side. I never stuck beside Hijikata because of some ulterior motive, or because I sought my happiness as a sort of internal measure for purpose. Yeah, exactly. Please, I'll do whatever you tell me to. Alright! My heart was on the right track.
Well, I'm touched you feel that way, but I want you to be happy. Without being with us.
Hijikata. He wasn't just saying that to make me feel better. I could feel the sincerity behind his words. I was happy to know he cared, but it pained me just as much.
Here are your orders from the Shinsengumi's chief.
He looked me in the eye, his voice flat and cold.
You would impede the function of the Shinsengumi, and will therefore not accompany us to Ezo.
I felt my heart skip a beat. Then the warmth in my body began to leave me. My hands trembled and wouldn't relent. As I felt my cheeks grow pale and cold from feeling, Hijikata stared back at me with a face of stone.
You're a woman, and you deserve to have your own life. I can't let us tie you down anymore.
Hearing that, all the power in my body had left me, and I fell to the floor. Dang you tsundere butt. Show some finesse with this lady. She got some feelings for you.
That's how tsundere show love. They're like, I can't be with you. You must live. That is all. That is all that I need.
Hijikata. Please, wait. I wanted so badly to scream this to him. But I couldn't speak. It felt like my hands, feet, and voice were no longer mine. I was powerless.
Take care. That is all.
Turns back. No! The minute he turned his back on me, I knew it wasn't good. It became clear that he truly intended to leave me behind. But I couldn't even lift a finger. Hijikata was getting further and further away, and his footsteps rang heavily in my ears. It was him, the one I'd been running after ever since the Battle of Toba-Fushimi. A man that, up to now, was working on chipping the distance between us, bit by bit. I don't want this! I squealed out loud, forcing my voice to be heard, but Hijikata walked as if he didn't hear me. Hijikata! Even when I called his name, he wouldn't stop. And eventually, I couldn't see his back anymore. Aw, a lonely girl alone on the road. Hijikata! Even after there was not a soul around me, I remained on the floor in a defeated stupor. I couldn't get up. I felt like something inside me had crumbled. An immense feeling of despair took over my heart. I've been chasing after Hijikata all this time, but he was someone who only moved forward. His life was lived by keeping his pain sealed away, but never once did he leave me behind. He gave me the chance to cling on to him. This is what kept us together. But now, I understood that there were no more chances to gather myself, or run after him, or any other childish endeavor to bring us closer. This was it. He cut me off. He deemed me of no further use to him, and he severed the ties that burned in his duty. Oh, Chizuru. Oh, my sweet girl. If only you understood the love of the tsundere. Trust me, if he heard you were in danger, he'd run from wherever he was to come and get you. He's doing this to keep you safe. Question. Since Kazuma has some unfinished business, do you think he'd use Chizuru as a lure for a final battle showdown to get Toshi to face him one more time? Because I'd be down for that. Tears began to stream down my face.
Yukimura.
I heard a quiet voice behind me and turned to see whom it was. Oh, hi. Otori.
I heard everything.
Oh. So I'm a lady. Otori and his men were marching with us to meet Enomoto's fleet. I had heard that he'd been in some of the fiercest battles in Aizu, and they'd changed him. He seemed stronger now, like a samurai.
I apologize for eavesdropping, but there didn't seem to be a good moment for me to admit I was here.
He handed me a small white piece of cloth. Aw, a hanky, thank you. What is this?
It's called a... right, a handkerchief. They use them in the West. You can use it to dry your tears.
At first, I hesitated. However, it was more embarrassing for me to stand in front of him covered in tears, so I took it. He waited until I had calmed down some before he began to speak again.
You want to stay with Hijikata, I take it?
Yes.
Then, will you wait for us until we settle down in Ezo?
What?
Once we're settled in, I can send for you. I mean, I could hardly leave a crying girl here alone.
Otari.
Oh, you needn't thank me. Once you get to Ezo, I'll assign you to Hijikata. It won't be easy work, but at least you'll be with him.
Otari? What? When were you? How come you're such a dude? Thank you? Man, you're risking the ire of Toshi, though. That was not how I was expecting that to go down. He's like, look, I'll take the flack. Hey, chapter 5. This is the only boy who has a chapter 5. I can't believe he's like, well, I'll send for you. Don't worry. But that's going to be so difficult because Toshi's just going to resent the fact that we're there despite him ordering us to stay away. Awkward. It's snow. Although I'm getting sad now because I'm thinking of snow bunnies with Saito. And snowball fights with the Shimabara trio. Oh no. I was so excited. Anyway, I got my summons from Otari right after the Matsume domain fell. A domain just southwest of Ezo that was once a member of the Northern Alliance. The death of its feudal lord sent discord through the domain, which led to its eventual change of allegiance to the Imperial Army. Hakodate is located here. The Matsume domain until then governed the island of Ezo. If Hijikata and the rest of the loyalist forces were to operate in Ezo, then Matsume was, by necessity, their first target. I crossed to the island just as Otari had instructed, booking passage on a Russian merchant ship.
Hello there, Yukimura.
When I arrived at Hakodate, it was Otari who came to pick me up. A port town that had been open to foreign influence after the passing of the Kanagawa Treaty, later flourishing from the sudden influx of trade and commerce. Thank you so much for arranging all of this. I gave him a short bow. And I repeated what I heard in the boat. Congratulations on establishing the Republic of Ezo. An entity established by former Tokugawa vassals, it was intended to be a refuge for the remnants of the Tokugawa clan and a stronghold of samurai tradition, not an independent state.
Well, calling it a republic is a bit of an exaggeration.
After conquering Matsume, they wasted no time in establishing the country that had been proposed back in Sendai.
As soon as the elections were finished, I sent for you.
Elections?
You've never heard that term before? You see, an election is...
Supposedly, an election was a political process used in America to elect leaders into their government. According to Otari, every person receives a ballot to vote, and the candidate, as Otari called them, with the most votes holds the country's political power. So, everyone has a say about who's in power. I'd never heard of such a thing before, but it seemed like a good idea. I remember Sakamoto telling us about this a long time ago.
Inamoto is our president at the moment. He's the only one who can call the whole government together.
Otari had taken the post of army minister, while Hijikata was made his assistant army minister. Or infantry magistrate, a term referring to the Republic of Ezo's infantry and artillery units. And assistant? Let's hope it's actually there. Yep. An executive position in Ezo that oversees many of the day-to-day activities of Hakodate's strategic planning and initiative. It is an elected position.
You had to wait for 3 months, I understand. Were they long?
Yes. I nodded. Still, the fact that they'd already defeated the Matsume domain and established their own government spoke well for the excellence of the former shogun's military. We had faced so many hardships and personal losses, so this felt like a step forward, a glimmer of hope. To me, of course, these 3 months felt like years, and only now was the dust settling in my heart.
Ever since we came to Ezo, Hijikata's been... different.
Different? How?
He's nicer to his men, which is good, but he spends too much time locked away in his room. He says he spends most of his time there deep in thought, and he won't let anyone come by.
Wasn't quite sure what to say. How's he been dealing with the bloodlust while I've been gone? Otre seemed to sense it, and instead of continuing the conversation, he reached into his jacket to remove an envelope.
I think he needs you.
Me? My heart skipped a beat. He needs me?
This document officially appoints you to your position. You can get the details after you give it to Hijikata.
Thank you. I took the letter from him and bowed.